Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome back to Witches of the Moon. This is Season 5, Week 19, and today I will be talking about movie witches that I love. Now this is kind of a funny topic for me. Why? Well, because I have so many. I could probably do a whole week and just devote one entire video per day for the entire week on a movie witch that I love and why. So what I tried to do is I tried to compile a list of some of my more favorite witches as you see them, not just in movies, but also in TV. And I'm going to use the term witches almost a little loosely because I'm going to include wizards and sorceresses and, just magical beings in general in this particular video. And I'm sure that when I'm done with this video, I'm going to go, oh, God, I know who I forgot. And I'm going to try not to make an addendum to this video. But let's get started. Going back in time, I think absolutely one of my most favorite characters that is a witchy character has to be Gandalf. Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings. He is a wizard, the gray wizard, the white wizard. He changes. If you've read the books, you know why. We'll go into that, but definitely a character that commands respect and accepts magic as it is. He understands that there's a time when magic is necessary, and he also understands that there's a time when magic is maybe not so necessary, that there are better means to getting what you need or want. But there comes a time when you got to pull out the stops and utilize your craft. And he's a very wise character. He's very tough. He has no problem with doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. But he always takes the path of least violence when he can. And that's one of the things that I really like about that character. He understands magic. He sees magic all around you. He utilizes the magic. It is a part of who he is, and nobody questions whether he's good or bad. Everyone knows that he's good. He commands the respect of all around him, but it's through his wisdom and not so much as magic itself. His power for sure, and his magic is part of his power, but his wisdom is more a part of his power. And that's what I really like about that particular character. I think that Tolkien did a wonderful job developing that character, and he's always been one of my favorites. And I have to say that honestly, this is a really ridiculously embarrassing thing to admit, but I have been reading since I was very, very young. I learned to read at the age of 2. And so I read Tolkien when I was probably in 3rd grade. And it was definitely a book that changed my perspective and drew me towards a magical path from the get-go. At first my mom kind of, looked askance at it because my cousins are all older than me. My cousins that introduced me to Tolkien and to Gandalf were older even than my sister. My sister is 6 years older than I am, and they were older than her. So they were already of an age where they could be reading this kind of thing, and so that's how I got drawn into it. That is absolutely one of my favorite magical characters of all time. Definitely a good one. The other character that I have always loved, that's appeared in many, many different movies under many different forms, is Merlin. Merlin, I think, is a good character in terms of, he's a lot like Gandalf in some ways. He's very wise. He uses magic. He uses scrying. He uses more a natural type of magic, I think, than a supernatural type of magic as you see it in Hollywood. And that's my thing. I think that's always been my appeal about those two characters, is that, yeah, they have magical powers, it's mystical, but it's not like a Hollywood type of magic. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody but me. But anyhow, he has always been one of my favorite characters for much the same reasons that Gandalf has been. He's very wise. He's very well-read, very learned. He's very knowledgeable. He's lived life. He practices magic. It is a part of who he is, but it's not all of who he is. It's just one aspect of his personality, and that's one of the things that I really like about that character. And another character that to me has always been extremely, extremely important, that goes in line. You see this person in Arthurian legend. I'm going to discuss that one towards the end. I need to make a note to myself so that I don't forget to discuss that at the end. But I want to talk about a little bit of just some movies, witchy movies, witch movies, movies about witches, and the witches in those movies and those TV shows that I really like. The first one that I want to talk about is a 1942 movie called I Married a Witch. It stars Veronica Lake, who is a heck of a good-looking blonde, very svelte, and she ends up marrying this guy. He just falls madly in love with her, can't figure out why he's so in love with her, and it's a good movie. It's a nice one. It's pretty clean, so you can watch it with your kids. You don't have to worry about there being anything in there that you don't need to know about. But definitely a fun movie, and she is definitely a woman who takes control when she needs to. Now, with some of these earlier Hollywood movies particularly, the witches have power, but they end up giving up their power to be with their man, which is a theme I don't particularly care for, but she's definitely a witch that knows what she's doing and knows what she wants. And going in that same vein, one of my absolute favorite movies of all time is the 1958 movie Bell, Book, and Candle, which stars Jimmy Stewart. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. And Kim Novak. And Kim Novak's a very lovely woman, too. And she plays a witch named Jillian. Sound familiar, all you practical magic fans out there? Jillian. And again, Jillian's one of those women that she's definitely a woman. She knows what she wants, and she wants Jimmy Stewart's character, and his name is, I believe the character's name is Shepard, and she wants Shep so badly, but so does her friend, her old college rival, her frenemy, and so she definitely sets out to do what she's got to do. But it's one of those movies that it doesn't portray witchcraft as an evil thing. Now, the catch to that is, again, she gives up her power to be with her man. She basically casts a love spell on him, but the problem is the spell works on her too. And if she falls in love with him, then she will lose her power. That's part of her power, is to remain alone. And I never quite understood that. I don't know why that was written into the script, but hey, always baffled me as a kid. I want to have my cake and eat it too. But that's a fun one. Then, of course, there is practical magic. I know that a lot of you out there are going to go, but I have never seen The Craft. And I honestly hadn't seen practical magic until about 2 years ago, when my daughter's best friend, her mom and I are very good friends. And her mom, practical magic is her favorite movie. And she gave it to me for my birthday because I had never seen it. And it's now really one of my favorites. I can watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it. And my favorite character out of that movie is Stockard Channing. Not only do I think Stockard Channing is a fantastic actress, very able to manipulate her parts, she assumes her role very well, and she plays Aunt Frances to a T. I love Aunt Frances, but one of the lines in that movie comes from that character, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time, about being normal. And what's normal? Normal's overrated. And again, I like practical magic because practical magic is one of those movies where it doesn't portray witchcraft in a negative light. It is what it is. And I like the fact that they touch on the fact that there are various different forms of witchcraft. And I loved very much the fact that they state that there's no devil in the craft. Okay? This predates all that. That's a fairly new concept. And it just kind of is unapologetically witchy, and that's what I like about it. Great movie, and I think I may have to end up watching, or reading the book, sorry. Of course, there's The Wizard of Oz. As a child, I always kind of felt bad for the Wicked Witch of the West. I never understood why. Here's the thing about me. I'm always the kind of person that wonders the whys and wherefores thereof. Why do people behave the way they do? And to me, there had to be more to the story than just what we were seeing in the movie about why the Wicked Witch of the West was so wicked. What had made her that way? Something has to make you be bad. When I was younger, that's what I believed. I understand now that there's people that are just, there are people that are just evil. But she never came off to me as evil. She was bad, but not evil, the fact that she mourns the loss of her sister. And, I always thought it was kind of funny that nobody ever dinged Glinda for getting Dorothy to do her dirty work for her. At least the Wicked Witch of the West is out there doing what she's got to do on her own. Well, with the help of the Flying Monkeys, which, if you've actually read the book, the Flying Monkeys were only temporarily helping her. But, that leads me to another one that is one of my favorite characters of all time, which is Maleficent. I have always loved Maleficent, and I was so thrilled when I saw the movie Maleficent. I'm not a big Angelina Jolie fan, but I think she played that role beautifully in that movie, and I loved that movie because I remember asking my mom as a child, why is she mad at King Stephen? Because her anger seemed geared towards King Stephen specifically, not so much the Queen. She's even kind of polite. Oh, no, Your Majesty. Yeah, oh, no, Your Excellency. And to show I bear no ill will, that kind of thing. I mean, she was actually, sarcastically polite, but she was kind of polite to her, but it wasn't geared towards her. It was between her and him, and I could never understand why. And I knew there had to be more to the story, so I loved Maleficent, and I loved what they did with that story. I thought it was fantastic. So she is definitely spot on one of my favorite movie witches of all time. I've only gotten a chance to see one of these movies, but The Good Witch from the Hallmark movies, those are cute. I'm a romantic at heart, and I love sappy little love movies. I love women's movies. I'm a woman, and I like The Good Witch. I think she's pretty cool. And for those that know, the woman that played the Marie on Everybody Loves Raymond, she was a character in a movie called Mrs. Miracle. Now, whether you want to take her as a witch or you want to take her as an angel, she did a lot of those Christmas movies. I love Christmas movies. It's my guilty pleasure. I'll watch them in the middle of the summer. I have no problem with admitting that. Yule is my favorite. Samhain, right up there with it. And I love the specials for those two. Which, for those of you that are old enough to remember, I have got to mention this because I actually found this. Somebody was selling it on DVD, and I bought it and couldn't find the movie I bought. They had recorded 2 other movies before it, and I didn't realize that I had to go through it because it was like they'd recorded it off their TV and they'd burned it onto a DVD. But for those of you that are old enough to remember the after school specials, they used to do an after school special. Oh, here comes my Chica Wika, come here, my little beagle baby. They did an after school special called Miss Switch. The Trouble with Miss Switch. If you haven't seen it, look it up. Maybe you can find it on YouTube. There's nothing like Miss Switch. She is one of my favorite movie witches. Can I help you? I think she needs to go out. Excuse me one moment. Okay, sorry about that. She really needed to go potty, I think. But I was talking about Miss Switch. Great movie. There's The Trouble with Miss Switch, and then there's Miss Switch to the Rescue. And they were both fantastic. If you all are old enough to remember Nancy McKeon, she plays the voice of the little girl in the movies. But anyway, they're short little cartoon after school specials, like a half an hour. We used to love it when Miss Switch would come on. And then I always showed her around Halloween. It was fantastic. She was great. But again, it was one of those things that they didn't portray witchcraft in a bad light. They showed the good and the bad side of it. Miss Witch obviously being the good witch, and most of the witches were aligned with her, but they were in fear of the one bad witch who had control of things. And so she's pretty good. And then, of course, you got Nanny McPhee, and you have Matilda. Never been a big Matilda fan myself, but I thought I'd mention her. She's a little girl. Nanny McPhee, Hocus Pocus, all those good Hollywood witches that we love. Of course, I absolutely love Endora from Bewitched. Her mother. Another one of those very interesting ladies who definitely knows what she wants and doesn't worry about it. One of the ones that I wanted to mention also that I really enjoy is I love Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl is the writer. If you don't know who Roald Dahl is, he wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is now to everybody Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but the book is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And he also wrote several other books. He wrote one called The BFGs, The Big Friendly Giants, and they're making a movie about that one. And he wrote a book called The Witches. And in the book, the witches are all bad. In the movie, there's a good witch at the end, but you don't know it. You think all witches are bad. But I do enjoy that. I think Angelica Houston played the head witch, the Supreme, quite well. Uh, she was very good. Jessica Lange, by the way, spot on performance in The Coven. But Jessica Lange is a fantastic actress anyway. I really liked her role in that movie. But Angelica Houston in The Witches is a really good one too, as she plays the bad role very well. The other witch that of course, Harry Potter, anything Harry Potter. I love all the witches of Harry Potter, including the bad ones. Bellatrix is my favorite. Why do I always go for the bad guys? I don't know, because I think there has to be more to it than just that. But another movie that I thought was really, witchcraft plays a major role in the movie, but not the witch herself. And that is Disney's Brave. In Brave, she goes to the witch to get a spell to kind of make things better for herself, and she ends up kind of screwing it up. And I thought that the witch in that movie was so funny because she's kind of, scattered. And I think a lot of us are. It's like she's got so many different things going on. And I also liked it because, again, they didn't portray witchcraft as being a bad thing. Now, you could go into the whole Frozen thing, which Elsa being a witch, and, there was a big brouhaha in the Christian community about boycott Disney, boycott Frozen. Elsa's a witch, and she is. She's got power. She's magical power. She's pretty cool. She has a hard time learning to control what comes to her naturally and is worried about the views of other people in it. And I thought they handled that pretty well, too. But that one was another really good one. And trying to think. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Angelica Houston. I have never seen The Witches of Eastwick. I know there's going to be people out there again that are going, oh, you've never seen The Craft, and you've never seen The Witches of Eastwick. My husband keeps telling me I need to sit down and watch that one, but I never really have. I like Jack Nicholson. I think he's a good actor, and I think Cher actually is kind of a good actress. I liked her in Mermaids and a couple of other things. But I've never actually seen those, so I can't speak on those. But if you're interested, I hear they're good movies. Maybe we can sit down and watch them together sometime. But the witch that I wanted to end up this discussion with is one that throughout time has played a role. And she now plays a major role for me. Dang, I wish I had the book. One second. Okay, I'm back. The witch I wanted to end this video with is one that has come to a central focus in my life, very important to me. And this is a witch that has been portrayed by many different names in many different ways throughout literature and Hollywood, particularly when you're dealing with the Arthurian legend. So going back to the idea of Merlin, in the stories, he was always good, and you needed something magical to balance the good magic. You needed bad magic. And, of course, I'm sure many of you have already figured out that I am talking about the Morrigan. The Morrigan has been portrayed in many movies, many stories throughout time. In some of the older Irish traditions, you have the Cattle Raid of Cooley. Many books have been written about that. I want to talk about her as she's typically seen in Hollywood, which is as Morgan Le Fay of the Arthurian legend, or Morgana. Sometimes you'll hear her called Morgana, but also The Hounds of the Morrigan by Pat O'Shea. This book, believe it or not, it looks thick, but you'll go through it. I read it. I was halfway done with it by the time I got to Colorado, and by the time we drove back from Colorado, I was done with the book. I read this when I was probably in about 3rd or 4th grade, and it was my first introduction to the Morrigan. And in this story, she is the bad guy. I mean, there's no question. She's definitely not portrayed in a good light. There's nothing good about her in this story. However, again, I've always been kind of drawn to the bad guy, though. I always feel like there has to be more to what's going on than just what meets the eye with people. And you find her portrayed like this in many different ways. And when you look at the character in this book, and you start to really look at Arthurian legend, and you start to look at other things, you start to realize that the legend of the Morrigan as a witch has been seen. I have heard people argue that Maleficent, much of the ideology behind Maleficent was taken from things that had to do with the Morrigan. Now, I think that they're trying to stretch things there myself. I've never seen too much there. Now, of course, if you want to go back to Snow White, I guess you could say that there's, you know, there's a witch there, and even the fairy godmother is kind of like, they're trying to say she's like a goddess, and she's not, but the stepmother with the whole scrying mirror and the apples and all that, and, you know, casting the spell and the poison and all that. I think they're stretching it a bit. However, you do see the Morrigan portrayed in Arthurian legend as Morgan Le Fay. And one of the earliest stories that I can think of where I really see that connection would be in the old story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. If you've never read that, read it. It's an old story. It's very old. It was written, let me think. It's not quite as old as Beowulf, but I think it was written somewhere around the time of the 1100s. And it is a story where she sends forth this Green Knight to test the various knights of the Round Table to see if they're really as good as they say they are. So she's kind of testing them. And they are definitely being sent by Morgana. The interesting link there for me would be that you often hear the term Mordred used too, and I think that that's even the inspiration for Tolkien's The Land of Mordor. Now, Mordred was the son of a Welsh goddess who is connected to the Morrigan, and you see those legends often played out. When you see Morgan Le Fay in the Arthurian movies that are made about her, and I'm thinking of one in particular that has a very prominent French actress. I cannot think of her name, but I love her. In fact, I think she plays Penny Dreadful, as a matter of fact. There was a production of Camelot that was done. I don't think it was actually Camelot. I think it was called Arthur. But it was a series, a TV series, and it was about that. And you see her portrayed there. She's definitely the Morrigan. The thing is that they don't, you know, they've kind of made her human. She's not a goddess as you see her, but she's definitely a witch. And throughout time, I've always been very drawn to that character, and I think it's because she, in her own way, was calling to me through those various characters from the time that I was very young, you know, knowing that I would need her strength and that she's always testing you. And I think that of all of the movie witches, that particular character has the most significance for me, because that is my mother, spiritually and physically, in time. And I think that through her characterization through time has always been, they've always tried to portray her as bad or a betrayer or somebody who is evil. But that's one of the things I liked about the particular series that I'm thinking about, and I wish I could think of the name of the show. I'm going to have to go back and look it up. I should have looked it up before I did this video, but I think it's called Arthur. I cannot remember, but it was so well done. But they actually show how she kind of gets screwed over, and you sort of understand why she does what she does. They make her, in a way, a sympathetic character. There's no question she's the bad guy in the show, but they do make her a sympathetic character. Maybe it was Merlin. Maybe that was the name of the show, Merlin, because it was supposed to be more focused on him and his interactions with her. And so that, I think, has to be my ultimate favorite TV or movie witch, Hollywood witch. So that's my list of witches. Like I said, I could probably make a video every day for a week or a month about the different characters. I'd like to go into more depth about their development and how they portray the craft, but I don't think that's really relevant. I hope that you all enjoyed this, and I hope that I've given you some leads to some new witchy movies that maybe you haven't checked out before. Check out Bell, Book, and Candle. Jimmy Stewart's such a wonderful actor, and Kim Novak does a wonderful job. It's a cute little movie. So, again, I thank you all very, very much. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and blessed be.